If you've got a diesel pusher and have questions about your front suspension, you're going to want to watch this video.
Tech Time Tuesday.
So today in the shop, we've got an 05 Travel Supreme, and this is a Spartan Mountain Master chassis, right? And this has the Reyco IFS 1460 front suspension. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive in the Reyco independent front suspensions. We'll talk about some of their unique features, some of the unique issues about the way they drive, and we'll give a little overview of how they compare to some of the other front independent suspension options out there. And Matt is one of our long-standing seasoned techs. He actually drove this coach and is going to be doing some of the work on it. So let's get on underneath the coach and take a look at it. So independent front suspension, of course, means that each wheel moves independently of the other, as opposed to with a beam axle, you've got just a cast I-beam going from one side to the other. And this is manufactured by Reyco. All the Reyco suspensions generally have a data tag right around here, right?
Yep.
It'll tell you what specific model.
Yep, right by the gearbox. Yeah.
Right. So on this one, it does say IFS 1460S. So that does give you a little bit of a clue of what your front axle weight rating is. So 1460, this is a 14,600 pound front axle. So there's different variants of this front end, right? There's the 1660, 1700.
Yeah, 1200, yeah.
Right, the 1200 and 13, those are a different animal, right? A little bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, versus like the 1460 and on up.
Yeah,
there's a lot of similarities.
Very common. Very common.
Right.
A lot of your big coaches out there, a lot of these coaches that are not made anymore, the maker's since gone under, but
right.
There's a million of these out on the road, a very, very good quality coach, and that's why they get traded around a bit, because they're very well sought after.
So how did this particular coach drive, and what was the customer looking to fix on it?
Yeah, he bought this so he could start wandering around the country, and it did have a lot of wander. It had some play in the wheel. It had a very hard pull to the right, so we have to assess whether that's a tire issue or alignment issue. These have a lot of moving parts in the front end. So the first thing that we wanted to assess was, where is this play coming from? So we get up underneath this coach and we have somebody with the weight down a dry park with all the weight on it and move the steering wheel back and forth. And it puts the stress back and forth on the moving components. We have from here, we have the steering wheel down to the column, the box, the pitman, and then we have a forward drag link. Okay, so we have to look at the ends here and make sure that the boots are not split, which on here they are split, so they need to be replaced. Then we go to this idler bell crank here, and then we have a joint here and a joint here. What we're looking for when we're checking this suspension is if this is rocking up and down, the bearings in here are no good. Okay, this is, what is it, a torque crank arm? I believe this one's called, it's like intermediate
crank rod, right?
Yeah,
this is the crank arm, that's the crank rod.
The crank rod. So this guy can also give you play without actually affecting the toe itself, because this is all the way up in your steering, right? What you're going to feel in the steering wheel itself. And then in the back, it has, it looks like a boomerang, but this is another bell, okay? And that actually has another set of bearings here, and you're gonna wanna look for up and down movement, side to side movement in these bearings. And then you got a screw-in ball joint that Spartan uses for the center link, okay? And that allows it to pivot back and forth. If those boots are cracked, there is no way to get the water intrusion out because there's no Zerk fitting, so there's no way to grease it. So if those boots have been cracked, and they have dust and dirt in them, they have to be replaced. So moving right along to the outers, they go out to the tie rod. There's an inner tie rod and an outer tie rod. You want to check those for play, and you want to check those for also cracked boots and whatnot.
Yep, thanks, Matt. Yeah, really good overview. That same basic design where you've got your gearbox up here and then essentially a two-piece drag link. That's used also on the 1660, I believe the 17, and the 17 as well. Now the 18 and the 20, those are a little different, where those actually have a second steering gear. So that basically does away with all this. The steering gear mounts directly to the center link, to where your pitman just connects right to the center link, and then you've got another gear over here that does away with the second idler. So that is a beefier design. Has a little bit less linkage as well. Okay, so a little bit of play, a little bit of wander. What are we going to be looking at for the wander, you think?
Well, we found on the crank rod itself, we found that these are worn on this end here and that end there. Then at the pivoting ball joints on the center link that we were showing you under here, those were worn. So that is definitely contributing to that, the wandering, because you're moving the suspension and you're not actually moving those parts yet. So when you finally get a hold of the parts and move it, you have this delay. And then you got a customer that puts the input into the steering wheel, nothing happens, then finally something happens, and then you're going back and forth, you're corralling the thing back and forth. Another condition that we have on this vehicle is the right rear is low. The first instinct, you know, that we said, well, let's level this thing out. Well, with an independent suspension, you don't want to do that. It changes the alignment. You want to have it hooked up to an alignment machine before you do anything to these.
Yeah, good point, Matt. With any independent suspension, you change the ride height, you're going to change your alignment. So your camber, your toe,
Yep.
probably casters as well, potentially.
Unfortunately, sometimes you get what you get with these. You know, some people will align them with a little bit of side-to-side discrepancy so that the tires won't wear and it'll track down the road straight, but they really won't notice too much on the road of how it drives. So it really doesn't take that much. It's not that critical to the driver.
So we'll be looking at and getting the heads on it, checking the alignment. Then when we're checking that ride height, that could be playing into that wander.
I found a leaky ride height valve, and for these models, it's a 2006, so it's been on the road a bit. We also found that the bags were dry rotting. So like I say, with a lot of moving parts, you want to check the bags. In reality, anything over 10 years, you want to note, hey, if it's getting dry, write that. That way the customer, next time you stop somewhere, can check my bags and see if they're still okay.
Now for the wander on this one, you actually can do a Safety Plus steering control as well, right?
Yeah, we don't have the electrical and the air lines in the way on this model. So right above the linkage, above the center link, right over the top there, there's a pretty good cavity to put a Safety Plus in there. And on this model, boy, you really want a Safety Plus in there. Some of these models you can't, you just don't have the room, but it's really a well-wanted piece of machinery.
Yeah. With this being the smaller 1460, it's got the round center link, which allows you to fit the, your clamps, U-bolts around the tie rod tube. The bigger, heavier ones actually use a square center link, so that one we're not able to do a Safety Plus on. And then like Matt mentioned, sometimes you've got like an ABS valve or something in the way right above that center link where the Safety Plus would mount. So this one actually a pretty good candidate for that as well.
It's got a lot of room.
Now, was there any stability issues, any bounce porpoising going on?
Very little. It actually has a decent pair of shocks on it now. They are not as heavy duty as some of the other shocks that we have currently in production. So we get vehicles that come in and they're like, oh, I just got new shocks, but all shocks are not equal. They can get a shock in there, brand new, and it's just not up to the task. So we have top of the line shocks. We keep them for a reason, because when we go in and out, we're not trying to just get the sale. We want to make sure we fix a problem, and we can't do that with a lower line of quality. So we get the higher end Conies, and it just fixes ride issues. Sometimes it even fixes vibration issues. It just depends on the coach.
Yeah, these particular Conies, it's a red diamond branded, but these would be essentially the same as the 99B 3234, which generally they do work well. They are a good shock. They provide a good ride, a good amount of control. Really nice upgrade over the Bilstein smaller bore. We have, however, found in some cases we're wanting a little more control. So you can actually check out a video we did on a Power Glide chassis with the same front end. And that was the first install of the 99B 3234 SP1. So those shocks would be what we would recommend on here to further cut down on that porpoising, just really get it all the way settled down. So Coney recommends those on the heavier IFS. We've actually found they work well even on the lighter ones like this, especially if you were to get, say, like a shorter wheelbase coach with the 1460 front end, that would, have even more of a tendency to porpoise. Just speaking of shocks on the Reyco IFS, it is important to note just some unique quirks about the mounting as well. You may have us ask you, if you're looking for shocks on your Reyco IFS, does it have a bar pin style mount or an eyelet style? Now this one already has the eyelet style mount. If it were bar pin, you'd basically have a little piece that comes out that's attached to the shock and bolts up to this bracket, where in this case we have a separate bracket that attaches the shock to the control arm. But speaking of this bracket, there's an issue we found here, right?
Yeah, these particular bolts, their threads go right into the control arm itself, and they were made from the get-go. They're kind of stiff. You want to go in slow, so somebody didn't, and they snapped the bolts off by going too fast with an impact gun. Half of the bolts are broken on these shocks, and it's been running down the road like that. So they have the danger of having the shock come loose, and then you have some sort of a drivability issue, you know, a bouncing tire in the front end. It's basically like driving around without a shock. That's something to watch out on these. Definitely do not use an impact gun when you're doing those. So.
Okay, yeah, good tip. So overall, a good solid front end, has a few unique quirks to it. How would you say the Reyco IFS compares to, say, like the ZF IFS or the Neway?
Well, you got, like I said, we went over the numerous amount of parts that we have on this and the moving arms and all that. When they restructured it to have less moving parts, basically like a pitman arm that moves off with, you know, a tie rod, a sleeve, another tie rod, make it really simple. And you got them just like kind of like a passenger car.
Right. The ZF and the Neway both have the gearbox right in the middle.
Right in the middle. It's a great design. They steer really well. You have really, really tight steering degrees on those. They drive really good. And these for what they were in the years drove good, but those the newer Neway, like saying the ZF, man, they drive great.
You get a little more adjustment on alignment on these compared to a Neway, right? Aren't you kind of limited on some of those?
Yeah,
with your caster.
They usually have a tendency to be a little bit of negative on the camber, and they give you like one shim or none, and so they get shimmed out in the middle. So if you remove a shim, it'll give you positive camber. Well, removing 1/16 of a shim is not going to give you much. These right here have an eccentric cam on here, and when you loosen the bolt up, I can turn this bolt all the way around. So I have 360 degrees of adjustment on these, and that's what makes these desirable. So I could give you a ton of camber, a ton of caster, and what you need, because sometimes when I was talking about the ride height before on those other ones, more often than not, like a ZF is going to end up with the right rear down or another corner down because you don't have enough movement to get the thing to be in good alignment. So they kind of have to meddle with the height, which is not desirable. So on this one, you're more likely to level one of these out and actually have enough adjustment with these to actually get it in alignment.
Well, thanks, Matt. Yeah, the good overview of all the different characteristics of this front end, the different variants of the IFS 1460 and the heavier versions of the Reyco IFS as well. If you have any questions on this, or if there's other suspensions you would like us to do this sort of deep dive in, please let us know in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe. And until next time, I want to wish you safer and happier driving. Thank you.
Tech Time Tuesday.